Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to today's webinar, Billing Made Simple, where we'll be covering tips and tricks on preparing and submitting your claims in Accuro. My name is Vicki, and I'm one of the product trainers. I've been with QHR for 10 years now, and the most recent 4 years as a trainer. My main specialty is covering billing for the Western provinces, so Manitoba to BC, as well as general clerical and clinical workflows. So I'd like to point out a few items today. Our training team is here and ready to answer your questions. It is a live event, but to ask your questions, you're going to need to do that through the Teams meeting itself. So if you could click on that Q&A button at the top of your screen, that's going to open up an answer pane on the right side of your window. And then you would need to click on the Ask a Question button in order to submit any questions you may have. There are also a few things that might pop up as well. So the new posts are going to let you know that there are new posts that have been added. So you can click on that in order to display any questions and responses that there are. But for yourself, if you are asking a question, you're going to see the show one comment text at the bottom of that window. So you just need to click on that in order to open the conversation and see the reply back. Please enjoy today's event. Although live, it is being recorded and will be added to our resources page should you need to review anything in the future. Okay, so today we're going to go over how to easily access claims, how billing can be expedited using billing macros. We'll also look at how billing rules can help reduce the amount of claims being returned and therefore lessening the amount of times that you need to correct those claims. We're also going to go over submitting tips and tricks, and then a really popular question, how to submit specific claims. And at the end, we're going to go over resources, and also we're going to have a quick survey. So please take a few moments to answer the questions at the end. All right, so now we're going to just move into our Accuro. So we all know that preparing our claims for submission is really easy in Accuro, but that doesn't mean that there aren't things that we could do to simplify it even further. So the first thing that we're going to look at is how we can make it easier. Accessing claims is a real thing that makes it simpler to be able to submit your claims once you've prepared them. We know that we can access them through the scheduler, for instance, by right-clicking and going to the claim details. And if your role needs you to work from this section, it might make sense. For other people, of course, there's the claim section itself. And then for a large majority of users, it's going to be from the EMR in this Encounter Notes tab. In order to access claims, if you're in this tab and you're just moving from patient to patient, you would just right-click on the claim, go into the claim details, enter your claim information, save and close, and then you're on to the next patient. Simply click on that drop down and there's your date sheet. There's no need to click around to different areas. It's just all right here. Now let's say you have a little bit of time and you want to be able to complete your note for your patient. When you're in your note, or for you billers who have to access the notes to find out what to bill, we do have this Open Claim Details button right here at the bottom. When you click on that, it's going to open up your claim details window, complete your bill, save and close, and then you're done. So you don't have a lot of moving around in Accuro in order to get your billings completed. It's all in one place. You don't have multiple windows open. It just helps to save a bit of time. Another way to save time is billing in your claims section. So if I come into the claims section, if there's nothing in the claim that I need to change, like in the claim details window itself, I can just click in the procedure code field and enter in my claim information. And then I can just tab over to diagnostic code. But to make this even simpler, I can use macros. They save a lot of time. They literally only take like a minute to make. So let's look at how that works. So I'm just clicking on the Accuro menu icon at the bottom left corner, and that's going to bring up my menu. It defaults to the search field, so I'm just going to simply type in macro, and I want this Manage Billing Macros option. So as you can see, there are some macros already created. I can easily take a minute to create the one that I want. A nice thing about having macros is that you can share them, you can manipulate them to be the way that you want them to be. So first I'm going to add something. Clicking on the add button, I want to type in the title. A little helpful tip, if you have a multidisciplinary clinic, you have providers that are using different billing macros potentially, it's easier for you to type in the initials for the provider as opposed to having to learn a list of a bunch of different names of macros. So I'm just going to start off with the provider's initials, and then I'm going to type in what this is going to be. All right, so I've typed in the name. The next is to add the procedure code. So I can start searching here. In some provinces, you might need to click on that search option instead, but we're just going to enter our code. Now, another benefit to having macros is I can or add rather the different layout that I would need. So some provinces, the order and what you're adding things is really important. In other provinces, I might need to add modifiers. So I can do all of that. I can add all of that information right into my macro. So I've just added the individual procedure codes that I need by using that add button here. And now that I've completed with the last one, I'm just going to do save. So literally it takes me like a minute. Now I can just click OK. Couple other things I can do with my macros as well is I can edit them if I need to. So I have something selected, I use the edit button, I can make whatever changes I need. Maybe I want to add a diagnostic code, or maybe there's things that I bill fairly similar, but maybe a little bit different. So what I can do is I can actually make a copy instead of starting from scratch. I can just make copies. So from provider to provider, or just little bits of difference in what I want to bill. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to modify the name, and then I'm going to call this home. And then I'm going to add an extra line here for myself. And then I'm just going to put in the code that I would do for this one. And then save it, and then OK. So now I've got my macros created. Super simple to make it. It didn't take me any time at all. But let's have a look how easy it is now for me to apply that code. So we're just going to choose our patient here, Otto. He was in the hospital over the weekend, and I just need to add the macro. Pro tip, before I add the macro through that procedure code field by typing it in, and again, this can also be done in the claim details, I'm going to type in the diagnostic code. That's going to make sure that the diagnostic code that I've entered pulls through the entirety of the macro that I'm using. So I'm just going to type the provider's initials and add my space, and there you can see all of the macros for the doctor and the ones that I need to add. And there we go. Already done. So billing super fast. It only took me a matter of minutes to create the macro and apply it to a patient. But there's even a faster method to be able to use my macros once I've created them. So I'm going to head back over to this EMR portion of Accuro, and I'm going to go to the day sheet. So in the day sheet, I have the option to right click and add a macro to a patient's billing. When I choose a macro, you can see that I do have the option to override an existing diagnostic code, or I can add the diagnostic code if there isn't one there, and then I can press apply, patient's billed. But to make it even quicker, as I have a macro that has the diagnostic code, and I have a couple of diabetes follow-up patients here, I can click and drag. I can use control and click multiple patients. And then what I do is I'm just going to right click and set my macro. So now that I have that, I can choose what I'm going to bill. So got my macros here on the left-hand side. You'll notice that when there's more than one patient selected, though, I don't have the option to override the diagnostic code. So I would advise that if you're billing multiple patients, that it is with a macro that does have one existing. It's a bit of a waste to have to go back then and add the diagnostic code later. So at this point, I've got both my claims selected. I've got the macro I want to choose. I'm just going to hit apply. It's going to warn me, hey, it's going to apply to everybody. I'm just going to say yes. And now both of those patients are billed super quick. Like it took me a matter of minutes. Another thing that makes billing a little bit quicker is our billing rules. So billing rules doesn't necessarily help me make it faster, but it prevents me from making mistakes where I have to then correct things later. Claims get returned and I have to, correct something, mark it for resubmission, send it back. It's a bit of a time sucker for us to constantly have to fix claims. So if I have billing rules that reminds me or tells me that I'm making a mistake, it helps me save that additional time later on down the road. So how do we do that? Clicking on that Accuro menu icon again, I'm just going to type in rule, and I want this billing rules option here. Now, as you can see, I do have a couple of rules in here already. I've got some that remind me to adjust the time in my claim if I'm billing something for a night or evening call. I've got the number of times a year, things related to quantity. There's ones for age. I've got things for referring physicians. There's all sorts of different kinds. So if I click the add button here and just click on that drop down, you'll see that there are quite a few different options of what I can choose. This build within date range, though, is the most common. So I'm just going to leave that and I'm going to select OK. Now in this window, I can put in the code that I want to remind myself that I can only bill a certain number of times per year. So for this one, I can only bill this once a year. So I'm going to enter my code, say that I can only bill it one time per 365 days. Now, if it's of itself, I can just leave it at that, or I can enter a different code. So if I have different codes that I'm billing, maybe hospital and then follow up, if they're too close together in some provinces, I can't bill those, I can put that in there and say, look, you can't bill it, and it'll pop up a reminder. I'm also going to add exceptions. So anybody who's been marked as a no-show or a no charge, those shouldn't be applied to this rule. So we're going to remove that as being something that's an option. And then I've got my show violation warning, which means it's going to pop up a warning and let me know that, hey, you shouldn't be billing this for whatever reason. I can add additional layers of reminders or changes as I need. So keeping in mind this is patient-centric, I want to make sure that if there's exceptions to the rule, I'm just going to leave it at this. I don't want to add anything else. But if I have a single provider, for instance, or all the providers don't share care in a patient, I can then put in that I would like this to be changed. So maybe if I bill this and it shouldn't be more often than once a year, it will remind me I'm making a mistake and then it will change it to something else. So I can always enter a code. And then if it's something that absolutely cannot get submitted, like it has to have a referring practitioner, I can use this validate during submissions for that particular rule, and it will remind me, hey, you can't do that, and will actually hold the claim back and stop it from being submitted. So there's a lot of layers that you can put to prevent claims from going out that really shouldn't go. For me, I'm just going to keep this as is, and so I'm just going to click OK. So now it's added my rule, and I'm just going to close it. So let's look at how easy this is. So I'm going to bill my patient here. And I'm going to type in the rule that I've just created or the claim that I'm going to bill for her, and we'll see how that rule works. So now I've entered in, and you'll see now I've got that validation pop up. It's telling me that this has already been billed once this year, and then it gives me the date of when that was billed. So I can say okay to this and I can move on. Now, if I'm unsure of this billing and I know it would be rejected if it was for this particular patient for the same doctor, I can just have a quick little peek down here in the claim history, and I can see that this particular one was actually billed in August and it's under a different provider. So I'm totally happy to continue on, that I don't need to change anything. And then I can just complete my claim. I can enter in their diagnostic code. And then from here, I'm just going to save and close. So now I've billed my other patient. So like those other rules we looked at, they would pop up different information just to let you know, like, hey, this is the incorrect time for what you're being billed, or you require something, or you're billing something too frequently, or it's too soon. Those things definitely help when we're trying to do our submissions so that we're not submitting things for correcting later. So when it comes to submissions, let's look at the best place to do that submission. So the first thing that we want to look at is the submission tabs themselves. So daily claims, if you submit from daily claims, because that works best for your office, I like to tell people that whatever works, works. However, we strongly recommend that people use the unsubmitted claims tab. And there's a few reasons for this. We're going to take a look at what's contained in the unsubmitted claims tab. So the first thing that we want to look at is this date filter at the top. It is defaulted to 9 months. There is a setting where you can change the number of months that it defaults to, but from time to time, it helps to also come in and check all items. When I do that, you're going to see that there are still things that are sitting in here that maybe I was unaware of. It could be that maybe these patients didn't show up. It could be that I haven't done my billing. But in the unsubmitted, I see everything that's in here requires my attention and either needs to be reconciled or submitted. The other thing that I'm going to find in here is anything that I have corrected and marked for resubmission. So I can see this patient at the top has a submitted date, which means that this has already been submitted and marked for resubmission. So when I submit from the unsubmitted claims, I send everything. Anything that is ready to go will go. Anything that's not ready stays behind, but this also includes anything that's been corrected from my not reconciled or adjusted tab. So once this has been done, it goes. I don't have to worry about submitting from multiple different places. I don't have to go back and look for submission dates in the daily claims to find what hasn't been done. It's strictly going to be here. And then I'm going to submit my claims by pressing submit claims. So it's different, obviously, in every province. I'm going to leave it as is. But once I've done my submission, all of the claims that are ready and meet minimum requirement of a procedure and diagnostic code will go. Anything not ready is going to stay behind. So I have a couple of options of the things that I want to do whilst I'm in here. One of them is maybe I don't want to submit today's claims. Maybe I'd like them left behind so that I can review them before they go. So the little column options button over there on the far right corner, it's just above that scroll bar. It's kind of small. We're going to click on that and look at our column options. I can remove this include today, which is going to take today's claims away and just leave me with anything prior to today. So stuff I really need to work on. If I've done my submission and I still have claims sitting in here, I've got a few options to determine why they're in here. So I'm going to click on a claim and it's going to let me know that it's missing information. So we can see over here at the bottom right corner, it's telling me the procedure code is not there. Now this is a step-by-step. So once I've added a procedure code, like I did in this claim, it's going to tell me that the diagnostic code is required. So then I can enter that. Now, maybe I have claims that are complete and they're ready. It'll also tell me that at the bottom left corner. But maybe I've done this submission and these are sitting back and I don't really know why. I can go over beside the submit claims button and I can click on that little validate button that's just to the right. So once I do that, it's going to actually go through all the claims and produce a list to let me know of the things that need to be fixed in those specific outstanding claims. Now, one thing to also keep in mind in here, once you've run that validation, you could do it before you do the submission, but Accuro will always send what's ready to go. So it's not necessary to do, but it's definitely helpful if you've got stuff sitting in here and you don't want to go clicking on every single one of them. So just a little time saver. All right, so one last thing, I just wanted to go back to this include today. So I can always put those claims back just by re-enabling that option, but this is a user preference. So if I have more than one person who does the submissions in the office, you need to be on the same page. If I were to do the submissions and another person also shares that responsibility and I have it removed and they don't, and they do the submission, that will submit your claim. So they would have to be coming to a consensus on what works best for the clinic. All right, so from here, submitting specific claims, that really popular question, how do we get this done? So the answer is claim tracking. We've got that little tracked claims tab at the top there. We can create pins and apply them to claims and then submit them through that. So clicking on that Accuro menu icon, I'm just going to type in pin. You can type in track, and we just want this manage claim tracking here. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry about that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to create a new pin. And to do that, I'm going to click the Add button, and then I'm going to give it a name. So I'm going to call this one Submit. I can add an abbreviation that will display beside the pin if I want to have that. But if I hover over the pin anywhere, it will tell me what that's for. And now I'm just going to change the color. And then press OK and close. Sorry, just a moment. Sorry about that. Okay, so now I want to submit those claims, and I'm going to apply a pin for those specific ones I want to submit. It's a simple right-click option. So I'm just going to highlight the claim or claims that I want to submit. So sorry about that. I can click on one. I can use my control button and click on more than one. And then I can just right click and apply. One thing to keep in mind when I want to set a tracking pin is going to pin the entire claim and not just a single procedure. So when I press submit, you'll see that that pin has been applied. If I forget what the pin is for, I'm going to make sure that I can hover over top of it and it's going to tell me. So to do the submission, I'm going over to that Tracked Claims tab, and then I'm going to use my pin filter to go to where I want to go. So I've got a couple different ones in use here. I want to submission, and then I have all the claims here that I want to submit. So then I can just submit claims, and only those claims will go. Keep in mind, again, in unsubmitted, when you do a submission, those submitted claims disappear. So they won't be in the unsubmitted when I go back, but they will still display in here. And this is a manually managed tab. So if I have claims in here, I want to make sure that I'm coming in here frequently enough to double check whether or not the pin has served its purpose and whether or not I need to track it. Once it's been completed, either through submission or whatever I'm tracking, I want to make sure that I right click and I remove the pin. If I don't, I'm going to end up with a bunch of things that just kind of build up over time, and it can slow down when it's trying to load everything. So maintaining this is a really good option. If you frequently use them, just make sure you're frequently coming in and removing the pins as well. So right click, set tracking pin to none, removes that pin, and then I can just do that as well for the other claim. So right click and then none, you'll see it removes the entire claim, not just those individual procedures. It's super helpful for those provinces where WCB, for instance, is submitted through Accuro when you have that time constraint to get them in. All right, so for me, that's the end of my presentation today. We're just going to do a few things to wrap up. I just hope that everybody was able to take some sort of tidbit or workflow that makes things a little bit quicker for them. Before we move on to our resources page, just a quick reminder about that short survey at the end. You should be seeing a pop-up come up for the resources page, or you can type in and follow along. It's accuroemr.com/support. So I'm just going to go there. Oops, sorry about that. And bring up my support window. There we go. So a few things to point out that are valuable for our resources page. Of course, you can always use the search option at the top or click on a tile to do search by topic. When we scroll down, there are popular support articles you can come and take a look at. Depending on your role in the clinic, you can also use additional information, perhaps about adding new users. So the Accuro EMR Admin Center is kind of fairly new and people are learning more about it. So you can definitely come in here. Our webinars, so like today, it will be in the past webinars option. You can also register for future webinars if you need to. And then there's the do more with Accuro. So Accuro Engage, do you want to be able to securely message your patients or maybe have video visits that work really well? The Accuro Engage products, when you click on that, you can learn more. You also have your practice consultant who can come and help with streamlining. So maybe you would like to know if your own individual workflow is efficient. Practice consultants are free and they'll help you with that. And then, of course, at the very bottom is our wonderful client services. All the information about your particular province and then what extension you might need based on the information on the tile. I'm just going to quickly circle back to our Accuro user training. So in the Accuro user training, when we go to the landing page, there's quite a bit of stuff in here that's also super helpful. Maybe you would like to learn more about Accuro. You can use that Accuro Learning Academy, people who are new to your clinic, super helpful for them. It's a laid back kind of way to learn. It's got videos and how-tos and follow-alongs. But maybe somebody would appreciate more structured learning. The Accuro Performance Training is that. It's got leveled learning from basic, intermediate to pro. You get badges and those kinds of things. So it just depends on learning styles. Both of these options are definitely free. And then there's the Accuro Tech Tips. Maybe you'd like to see if little tech tips can come in weekly into your inbox. And if so, you can sign up. And then if you find it's not super helpful, you can always stop as well. And then, of course, there's our expert-led training. So maybe you'd like to pay for some one-on-one time with one of our training experts, and then you get to have that unique time to yourself. And the last thing I want to point out here is our new promos. So currently we have a promo on for the referral and requisition tracking. You can feel free to take advantage of this promo by putting in your information and submitting the form. And there's also a new one that's going to start on Monday, and that's going to run until Friday, the 25th of July. And that's for the billing errors and reconciliation. So if you would like to have help going through, checking your accounts receivable and managing returned claims, this would be a really good time to sign up for that. And please feel free to come back, star these options, and you can come and double check to see any promos that we've got coming in the future as well. All right, so again, I hope you enjoyed today's presentation. If we didn't get to your questions, please feel free to reach out to our client services team. They would be more than willing and happy to help you. Also, don't forget to take part of our survey. This really helps us to focus in on the items that you would like to learn more about. All right, so you should be able to see that link to the survey in the Q&A right now. We're going to leave that open for a few minutes and allow time for you to complete that. I just want to thank you all again for attending, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.